In this video, I'm going to show you one of the more common driveline problems that's showing up on these Mercedes. Now, the reason for this problem is primarily due to age, and it's related to rubber as well. And how do I know there's a problem? Well, I was driving this car yesterday, and under heavy acceleration, I could hear a thumping noise under the floor just after the transmission tunnel. So we put it up in the air, and let me show you what I found. If you take the drive shaft, I'm going to get back here, I'm going to grab a hold of the drive shaft and watch what happens when I give it some movement. See the movement and listen to the sound. So that's what I was hearing when I was accelerating. There's a problem up there with the drive line, and it's right in the center. Mercedes-Benz used the same basic setup on the center section of the drive shafts from the early 70s right up to the middle 1990s. And you have two sections, a forward section here. The rear section has the universal joint, and to support this center section, there is a carrier. On most of these old Mercedes, because they're so old, this is what happens. The rubber section disintegrates. The bearings seem to last a little bit longer than the rubber, but they'll also start making noise after a while. The first indication that this has happened to your carrier is that you'll start to feel some vibration in the center of the car, under the tunnel. This part was hitting and clunking underneath the car. Sometimes you cannot inspect this visually because there's a heat shield in the way. So it's grabbing a hold of this section and moving it, seeing how tight it feels is probably the easiest form of inspection to check the condition of your center bearing carrier and center drive shaft bearing. When you're replacing this center bearing carrier and the bearing itself on these old Mercedes drive lines, one of the more difficult aspects of this is getting the bearing off. Now, I've already pulled this bearing off. It's interference fit on the end of this section of the drive line. Now, what I'm going to tell you here is going to apply to almost every drive line from the early 70s up to the mid 1990s. There are a number of different ways you can remove this. You could get a puller. You have to be a little bit careful if you're going to beat it off, because you can damage the needle bearings in the universal if you're beating too hard on this. So what I found works really well, and this is what I'm going to include in some of my kits on a limited basis, because I have some extras of these, is to place this over and use a slide hammer. Now, the slide hammer that fits into these threads is very common. It's a 5/8 by 18 slide hammer. We carry these on my website, but you can almost obtain them anywhere. It's the most common thread on these larger slide hammers, 5-pound slide hammers that you see here. Let me show you how similar these are all the way from 1973 up to 1995. If you notice, the bearings are all the same. The boot covering the spline is the same. And the differences are in the mounting bracket on the carrier. And this one here is for all the W123s, the W116, and the early R107. This one here is only for the early W126 from 1981 to 1985. And then finally, this one here fits all the W124s, the 560 SL, the late 126s from 1986 to 1991. Now, there's a couple more that I'm not showing here. There's a specific one for the 114 and the 115 chassis. There's also another different mounting bracket for the W201. But these are the ones that I'm currently offering on my website. And along with these carriers, we go ahead and install the bearings for you. These are OEM bearings. They're not cheap aftermarket bearings that we install. And we include the boot in each kit, and then there are two tools that I include. This one I will include for a limited time until the stock runs out. So you'll want to make sure and check the website to see if this is still available. And this one is used to attach to a larger slide hammer to get the bearing off the drive shaft. This steel tube is what you'll need to drive the new bearing with the carrier back onto the drive shaft before you put it all together and put it back in the car.